Welcome back to Chapter 9. In this video, we're talking about other input types. From before, we talked about a lot of input values. In this case, we're talking about multi-line text, or a text area. This provides space for multi-line inputs, such as paragraph responses or comments. Keep in mind that if you're using a form, such as a text field, and you press Enter, that may automatically submit the form. In this case, using a text area, Enter usually means a new line. You can still use the same attributes such as ID and name and a few other items. Once you get into stylizing in text area, you can also set a width and a height based on columns or calls. However, unless you know the exact spacing of that based on the font you're using, it would be better to hold off on that until we get to CSS. Some cases may require you to use the spacing for that, which we'll get into in the Code With Me videos. Next, you have hidden fields. These are input types. This allows the passing of information without letting the client see it. The hidden input is not visible on the form itself. It's not usually a modifiable value, but it's used for user IDs, unique values, or something relevant for the client, but not important to the client. Basically, for example, if you have a Facebook account, chances are you have some kind of unique identifier that is identifying your account in their databases. So when you're submitting information via Facebook, the hidden input type is being used so that that information can be identified to your record. Do you know what it is? It's not important for you to, but it's important for Facebook to know what that unique identifier is so they can get the information on your account. Next are buttons. This allows you to create a button for the client to click on. There are many actions, and these can be controlled by JavaScript. We won't get too in-depth with this, but the Code With Me videos should allow you to see what it's like to create a button. Submit, reset, and buttons can be created by using input types and those values, or button type and those values, except button type equals button doesn't make any sense. Submit automatically submits a form. Reset resets all the fields. And button by itself does nothing. Keep in mind that the button tag does not support a value attribute versus the input for buttons. To give you an example, this right here, these two lines, the input type equals submit, value equals login, and button type submits with login wrapped between the button tags. Both create the exact same thing. They create a login button to allow you to submit the information in the form. Next are image submits. These aren't used very widely nowadays, but they're still a good thing to keep in mind when you're creating different forms and fields. When you're creating an image submit button, this is used to have an image as the submit button instead of just a submit button by itself. You can use different attributes such as type must be set to image, src, which is similar to the image tag, specifies the path to the image, alt provides alternative text, width and height specifies the actual size of it. But based on this, you will be able to have an image instead of a submit button on your form. You can also use color inputs. This allows for the selection of color and submits the color in a hexadecimal color value for the end user. Just like the date input type does the standardized date sending to the form handler, in this case, you're sending a standardized color to the form handler. For example, you see this little black box. Once you click on it, it gives you a nice spectrum of colors to choose from. This does not work on all browsers, so you may want to have a different fallback in case the browser does not submit it. To give you a good example about different values that can be submitted via a color tag, let's take a look at this color right here. The official name for it is Deep Sky Blue. RGB is RGB 0, 191, 255, hex is #00, BFFF, HSL is 195, 100%, 50%, HWB, CMYK, NCOL, etc. All of those create the exact same color. But do you know that? Chances are you don't. So when you're creating the color input type, this is going to go ahead and submit the hexadecimal value for that color that's being selected. So in this case, if you have a client that needs a specific shade of red or a specific shade of blue, this way they can tell you what it is instead of, it's kind of a weird blue, kind of darkish, not dark navy, but kind of dark light blue. You know what I mean, you'll find it, right? In this case, this allows the person to specifically select the color they want to submit. You also have different form type or input types. In this case, you have month, which allows you to select the month and the year that is being presented. Again, this is an uncommon input type and may not be used in all browsers. You have week, which allows you to select the week number, for example, week 16 in 2018. Again, not used in all browsers. Time allows you to select a specific time for the item that the client wants to choose. Again, not used in all browsers. Date time local allows for the localization of the date based on the information provided. For example, if you're on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast, I want to make sure the time you're sending me is the same time I'm going to see, versus having to adjust for 3 or 4 hours depending on daylight savings. Again, not used in all browsers. Search automatically provides an X based on the search term. You can easily click the X and clear out the field, and this is a neat little feature, but again, not supported in all browsers. Lastly, you have range, which allows you to provide a slider going up and down. You can also use step for this. Is not commonly used, and for most cases, some browsers may not allow you to see what number you're being picked. So again, not used in all browsers, good to have a fallback, but in some cases, the selection of a number or selection of a range will be more beneficial than a slider in this case. Okay, so that is it for this video. If you have any questions about this or anything in Chapter 9, please send me an email or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll get back to you with the best possible answer.